Hi, boys and girls. Today we are going to be talking about tempo and time signatures. That is our learning target for this week. So, the first thing to talk about is what is the difference of tempo versus rhythm? So, tempo tells us the speed of the beat, where rhythm tells us the length of the notes and rests. So, what exactly does that mean? One way to think of that is an example is that whole notes are long notes, they aren't slow notes. Sometimes students see a whole note in their music and they say, oh, this is really slow because it's a whole note. If we're at fast tempo, ta, that whole note's going to go by pretty quickly. On the other end of the spectrum, eighth notes are short notes. They're not necessarily fast. And so if it's a very slow tempo, T, 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 those eighth notes are going to go by at a slower pace. There are 4 tempo markings that really all student musicians should start to be familiar with by the end of 6th grade and for sure by 7th grade. And those are largo, that means a slow tempo, andante, a moderately slow tempo, also known as walking speed, moderato, just like it sounds, a moderate speed, and allegro, which is a fast tempo. There's 3 other tempo markings we should know, and those are retardando, which means gradually getting slower, and meaning the same thing as rallentando, and you can see that those are abbreviated with rit and ral. On the opposite end, we have accelerando, and it looks like the word accelerate, and just like accelerate means gradually getting faster, that's exactly what accelerando means. There's some more tempo markings for our more adventurous 6th and 7th graders, and our 8th graders should definitely be working on getting to know these. These are listed in the order from slowest to fastest. The very slowest tempo marking looks like the word grave, and that might help you remember its place on the list. It's actually pronounced grave when we're using the music language. That's very slow, followed by largo, then lento. Adagio is similar to lento, but it also has an element of extra expressiveness. Then that's where we find the terms we already know, andante and moderato, followed by allegretto, moderately fast, but still slightly slower than allegro, allegro, which is fast, vivace, which means lively and fast, and our very, very fast tempo marking is presto. Our metronome is our really valuable tool that we use to help us with a steady tempo. You used to need to use one of those old-fashioned metronomes like we see in the picture here, but with the internet, you can just Google it, and that's what we do in class all the time. And I know when I personally practice at home, I still use a metronome. You're never too good to practice without a metronome because it's very easy to slow down or speed up without realizing you're doing that. So Google metronomes for free, and it's a great practice tool to help with your tempo. Let's move on to time signatures. So we're all pretty good at this. The top number tells you the number of beats in a measure. Here's some examples of some crazy time signatures mixed with some common ones. But let's go to the more challenging one, that bottom number. So the bottom number in the time signature tells us the type of note that receives 1 beat. So here's some examples. If there's a 4 in the bottom, which is what we're most used to seeing, that means that a quarter note receives 1 beat. I'm going to blow your mind. You're going to start seeing as you get into the end of 7th grade maybe, but definitely sometime during 8th grade, time signatures with a 2 on the bottom. Just like in math class, a fraction with a 2 on the bottom is called a half. This tells us that a half note receives 1 beat. And if there's an 8 on the bottom of that time signature, it means that the 8th note receives 1 beat. And finally, there's 2 time signatures that don't have numbers. One of them is common time, which is the same as 4/4. And then the common time with a line through it is called cut time. So it's common time cut in half, sometimes with the fancy name a la breve. And that means 2 beats in a measure, and the 2 on the bottom tells us that the half note receives 2 beats. So hopefully this has been a good refresher for you. Feel free to go through and look at these slides as you are working on your assessments for these week, because performing your tempos and rhythms correctly is the key to a successful musical performance.